Hey guys! So I've been thinking quite a lot lately about productivity and organization, and I've realized that my thinking about both of these things has changed quite considerably over the years. When I'm not making videos, I'm a professional strategist. I am the Chief Strategy Officer for a region for one of the most innovative companies in the world. I am also a doctoral candidate where I'm doing my doctorate in business administration. When I'm not doing either of those things, I am also a girlfriend, a sister, a daughter, a friend, and a whole bunch of other things, as well as having my own pursuits like wanting to learn languages, wanting to volunteer, and that sort of stuff. I am, however, the laziest person that you will ever meet. And by that, I mean that I don't like to do things more than once if I don't have to. I seek to try and do things in the most optimal way possible because, quite frankly, I love my job and I love my studies and I love my boyfriend, but I don't want to be spending my days just doing more work than I need to in order to get the most joy and fulfillment from it. And the same is true for anything. I would prefer to be spending my days trying to tame the wild squirrel that runs across our balcony from time to time, or running with my boyfriend, or catching up with friends, or, refining the delicate art of bananagrams. So this means that where once upon a time I used to look at these things as kind of the means to an end, or the end in themselves, now I look at them as more of a means to an end. Now, back in the day, I think I looked at organization kind of like you would a household chore. So I got great fulfillment from getting things done, but it was mostly the satisfaction of having it done rather than the actual task that I wanted to do in its own right. Now, anyone who has ever written something on a to-do list in order to cross it off will know exactly what I mean. Now, when it comes to productivity, that was something else entirely. And once upon a time, I used to look at it more like being productive was the point. I just wanted to squeeze as many things into life as I possibly could. And my thinking now has been more about shifting that into prioritization. So making sure that I have the time for the things that matter most to me in life. So with that in mind, there's a few different productivity kind of tools and hacks that I wanted to try. The first is an app called Endel. Now, a friend of mine recommended this to me a really long time ago, probably about 6 months ago, for sleeping. Now, it's actually provides AI-based soundscapes. And what that means is that you get this kind of sound that it plays to you that isn't really music and isn't really white noise, but somewhere between the two. I've been using it to sleep to great effect. I'll probably talk about it some other time, but what I wanted to do was actually try it as a focus tool, along with another technique that I've used for about 5 or 6 years now called the Pomodoro technique. I won't go into it in too much detail, I'll link it down below, but what essentially you do is concentrate on a task for a specific period of time, usually about 25 minutes, and then take a 5-minute break in between. So what I'm going to be doing is playing Endel through headphones or on a speaker. I think it's better on headphones. For those 25-minute timed periods, and then taking intentional breaks. The other thing that I'm trying is a tool called Sunsama. Now, I first tried Sunsama, I think at the end of last year, and it was really cool, but it didn't really have a lot of integrations to it at that time, and it mostly ran on the Google Suite. Now, I live in China, and the Google Suite is largely blocked here, but also with my full-time job, we mostly use Outlook, and that means that it was difficult for me to use something that was so heavily integrated in the Google system. That has changed now, and they are actually available with Outlook integrations. So I'm really excited to give this a go. I'm quite interested because when I tried Sunsama last time, it wasn't just a productivity and prioritization and organization tool. It also allowed for better communication between teams and that sort of stuff. But really importantly, it was more a philosophy. Many years ago, I used to use a budgeting tool called You Need a Budget. And one of the things I really liked that is it fundamentally shifted how I thought about finances and how I thought about money. And I feel like the same is true for Sunsama. So I'm really excited to give both of these things a go and to see whether or not they help me to be able to better prioritize and better organize things. That's it for now. I'm really excited to see how these things go. I will report back to you as I go. Hey guys, it's Sunday afternoon, like late afternoon, early evening, and I'm not gonna lie, I am absolutely wrecked. It's been not really a big weekend so much as a mentally super intense weekend. Yesterday I spent most of the day just with my head in my reading for my thesis, and today I went to a class in the morning, like a gym class in the morning, caught up with someone from work for brunch so that we could catch up on some work stuff because we ran out of time during the week. And then my boyfriend and I have decided that we're going to go and volunteer to teach English to disadvantaged kids in China. China has just given us so much, and we really wanted the opportunity to be able to give back in some way. So I went to go and do that class today. He couldn't actually come to our first class, unfortunately, because he had to work. So I was there with one of the other volunteers running this class, and it was it was rewarding, but it was also just really interesting. It was really nice because they had a very experienced teacher who actually joined us for our first class and was in the room and took a lot of notes and coached us during it, which was incredible. As many of you have probably guessed, I love being a novice at things, and having the opportunity to really take that kind of beginner's mind and to be able to experience things for the first time, and having someone who really knew what they were doing in the class was incredible and really fantastic for being able to provide me with feedback that I probably wouldn't have otherwise got. The kids are adorable. Like, a bunch of the boys were very boisterous and they knew how to swear in English, and they were hilarious. Some of them were super advanced in terms of their English skills and things like that, and there were some others that were really quiet and just really quite reserved, and it was so interesting to see the dynamic amongst them, which was fantastic. However, it is insanely hot today, in the mid-30s. It's that humid kind of heat that you get in this part of the world, and I was kind of dying. So I think a combination of just extreme thinking and computational skills plus heat, I'm absolutely wrecked. Unfortunately, I haven't got through as much of my reading as I wanted to this weekend, so I'm now sitting down trying to do some of my reading. I mentioned previously that I was trying out some new productivity and kind of concentration tools and things like that, and one of the things I'm trying is the Endel app, which provides AI soundscapes to help you kind of concentrate or to focus on things, or even to be able to sleep and that sort of stuff. So I'm trying one of those soundscapes, the deep focus soundscape, along with the Pomodoro technique for kind of deep work and focus. So what I actually do is have the Endel app playing, and then I play the sounds through my AirPods, and I do that in 25-minute cycles. So for those of you who haven't heard of the Pomodoro technique, I will link to it down below, but essentially you do something for a concentrated period of time, usually 25 minutes, and then you take a 5-minute break. But during that 5 minutes, it's really important that you don't hit social media and that sort of stuff. So I'm trying that at the moment, and I've found that it is really useful. I'll review the whole thing separately, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of context. I'm reading major kind of research papers, a lot of kind of deep research into the particular thing that I'm researching for my thesis. And what I've found is that the style of academic language is incredibly rigorous, but it's very, very specific. And that means that they use terms that we don't necessarily use in everyday language, or not in a way that we might be familiar with. And it requires incredible concentration in order to be able to really get through it. Let me read you a sentence that I just read. In this spirit, for example, it has been argued that the persistence of garbage can decision processes in organizations is related to the diversity advantage they provide in a world of relatively unstable environments, when paired with the selective efficiency of conventional rationality. I, as you probably know, am a native English speaker, and even I have to read that several times in order to be able to understand what's going on. Now, all of my classmates are Chinese. I'm the only foreigner. I have no idea how they're getting through this. Admittedly, we're all reading different papers, but I think this is probably illustrative. Now, what I find to be quite useful about the Endel app and by having something playing that is so distinct is that it actually keeps me audibly focused on the task at hand. So for example, when I read sentences like this, prior to reaching equilibrium, individuals with a high value for P gain from being in an organization in which there are individuals having a low value for P, but the converse is not true. Now, my brain helpfully immediately goes, converse. What's the difference between converse and inverse? Maybe I should go look that up. I'll go look that up right now. And yes, it is interesting to know what the difference is between converse and inverse, and if you want to know, I am more than happy to explain it to you. However, it's not particularly helpful to me actually getting this done. So what I do is keep a little notepad separately. I will kind of jot down anything that springs to mind and just keep going on this task until I get to the end of the 25 minutes. I have found this to be quite useful when it comes to actually getting stuff done and getting through like really chunky projects and things that really need to get achieved, and it really helps me to be able to stay focused. Which brings me on to the last thing I was wanting to talk about. A lot of people ask me why I'm doing my doctorate and whether tertiary education is still really relevant in, you know, like non-professional fields and those sorts of things, although I am doing a professional doctorate, side note. What I think it provides is the opportunity and the proof that you can actually stick at something to an extreme depth and push through even like anything in order to be able to get it done. I started this video by telling you that I'm absolutely ruined, and I am right now, but I still make the time and have established the practice and developed the mental muscle that is needed to sit down and get this sort of work done, even when I would really rather be lying on the couch and watching a movie or doing something else. And I think in a lot of ways this is something that tertiary education does. It shows that you actually have the stamina to get through it. And I think that's what life is about in a lot of ways, showing that you have the stamina and the endurance to actually get through things, because the whole of life can't be sorted just by flitting from thing to thing. Anyway, that's me for the afternoon. I'm really interested to keep trying the Endel app with the Pomodoro technique. I will let you know how I go in full detail later. I'm also trying Sunsama. I've mentioned it before. I'm really excited where that's going, so I'll be sure to update you really soon on how both of those are playing out. It probably won't come as a surprise to you that watching someone use a productivity tool does not make for great content, but I wanted to quickly show you how I'm using Endel. This is the Endel app in action. Now, what I do when I'm using it for focus is to swap it into the deep work mode. This is the sleep mode, which I'd been using the night before. What I do once I've selected deep work is to go to the timer mode and then choose 25 minutes. Using the Pomodoro technique, I then let it play for 25 minutes before taking an intentional 5-minute break to make up a half-hour Pomodoro. So, productivity hacks. I just watched back the video that I recorded before I started this little experiment and realized that I wasn't super clear as to why I was doing this. I think productivity hacks and tools and organizational tools and all those sorts of things, broadly speaking, kind of speak for themselves. But I did want to take a moment to be clear about my particular philosophy on these things. I used to have this idea in my head that it was best to cram as much as humanly possible into the time that you had available, and you could just be infinitely more productive and multitask and all these sorts of things. I used to do things like listen to vocab lists for Chinese when I was running and all these sorts of things, listen to news when I was in the shower, you get the idea, so that I was constantly trying to do multiple things all at once. Now, my regular job is incredibly thought intensive, and one of the things that I've discovered over the years is that you can't do better work than when you actually kind of have these white spaces in your day. So you've got kind of downtime for your brain to be able to think of something else that isn't intensive, and it really helps to let your brain kind of relax and think about other things. And often you will do incredible work, particularly thought intensive work, during that time, because you just have ideas, like when you're riding your bike or when you are running or doing whatever that might be. The other thing is that I have really learnt the value of nothing time. I've said in another video that you may or may not have seen that I get up incredibly early in the morning, and that is when the most kind of intensive organization and prep and kind of study and all these sorts of time is actually done. Like that's when what I do in those hours. Then I'll get a lot of work and like stuff done during the day, but after about 6 or 7 in the evening I am not like doing thought intensive stuff. That is when I am catching up with friends, like watching a movie on the couch, you know, doing something that is far less brain intensive. So for me, the purpose of all kind of productivity tools and organizational tools and those sorts of things is fundamentally around working smarter, not working harder. So if I've only got 2 hours to do stuff, that I actually make the best use of that time. With that in mind, the 2 things that I've tried, which is Endel along with the Pomodoro technique and an app called Sunsama, has really been around being able to, you know, get deeper focus in the focus time that I have, and to be able to almost work in a mindful and meditative way. So I'm just kind of focused on the task at hand, and then just kind of better organizational skills generally. I am constantly interested in ways to kind of better organize myself. This doesn't really come from anymore. It used to. It doesn't come from a place of wanting to do more, be more, all this sort of stuff. It's actually just about not double handling everything. Like, I think when you're disorganized, you'll often tend to remember the same thing over and over and over again but never action it, or you'll end up kind of picking up things a lot of times. You'll look at the same email multiple times, all of these sorts of things, which is just like a waste of life. I would prefer to just read an email once, to just action an item once, to just, you know, have a good system in place so that when I promise someone I'm going to do something, it is done, and it's done once. Anyway, I digress. Endel, along with the Pomodoro technique, and Sunsama. So Endel is an AI-based soundscape app. I mentioned at the beginning, a friend of mine recommended it to me a while ago. I have been using it with the smart alarm for white noise to go to sleep, and then it has a smart alarm that kind of gently wakes you up. I really like it for that, and so what I've actually been doing is using the deep work mode along with the Pomodoro technique. Now, I'll link to detail about the Pomodoro technique below. I'm not going to go into it here, but essentially it is just working in focused blocks with an intentional break between them. So what I've been doing is playing the Endel Deep Work soundscape through headphones whilst I've been doing the 25-minute Pomodoros. I've actually found this to be remarkable. It kind of has the effect of keeping me on task audibly. So every time I find my mind wandering and I think, oh, I'll just check that email, or oh yeah, there was that thing I've got to do, or whatever it is, I have this audio cue to stay focused on task. I'll speak separately if anyone is interested about how I've made the Pomodoro technique work for me. I have been using it for a while and I do find it quite effective, but the Pomodoro technique in conjunction with Endel used together is like supercharged powerful. On the whole, I would give it like an 8 or 9 out of 10. This is an incredible tool for me and I'm really excited that I came across it. Now, Sunsama. I did try this a little while ago and I only had Google integrations at the time. That made it quite challenging for me to be able to use it because the bulk of my work is done in Outlook, owing to me having a regular job and working, you know, in a corporate environment. Sunsama now has an Outlook integration and has far more integrations with like Slack, Trello, and a lot of these other sorts of tools. The really interesting thing for me about Sunsama is it's not just a tool, it's also a way of thinking and a kind of system for approaching organization that is quite zen, for want of a better word. Many years ago, I used to be incredibly passionate about finance blogging. I am actually qualified as a financial planner and I really enjoyed that stuff. During that period, I went through a ton of different budgeting tools, which sounds crazy now, but I tried all of them. And one of the ones that really ended up sticking with me was called You Need a Budget. And the reason that really stuck with me is that it actually had a philosophy that sat behind it, and you had to kind of adopt that philosophy to managing your personal finances in order to make the tool work for you. But that really did change my life. And I have recommended it to a whole bunch of people over the years. In a similar sort of way, Sunsama is an approach to organization as well as a super powerful organizational tool. I have loved using this. I'm not sure how it's going to go on a long-term basis yet. I've been using it probably for about, I want to say 10 days, 2 weeks now, but have found it to be incrementally more and more part of my life. And once you actually get used to the habit of sitting down, organizing your day in advance, kind of like you would organize your budget in advance, now I think about it, it really is life-changing. So again, I think an 8 or 9 out of 10 for me on this one. I can't think what more I would like from it, but whether or not it kind of fits into the groove of my life, I'm not yet sure about. Anyway, that's it from me today. So Endel, along with the Pomodoro technique, Sunsama, absolutely both worth a go. I'm really excited about both of these and am absolutely going to keep using them. That's all from me. Thanks so much. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.